Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode of TV and Us, a conversation show about the TV series we just can't stop talking about. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And each season we focus on a different show, reviewing it episode by episode, and we invite you to watch along with us. Right now, we are reviewing The Sopranos Season 1, and today we are on Episode 9, titled Boca. If you haven't watched this episode yet, this is your spoiler alert. Please check out the episode before listening to the rest of our conversation. We also just wanted to include a content trigger warning. This episode of The Sopranos covers some pretty difficult topics and maybe sensitive, so please take care of yourselves. Your whole being and your mental health is most important. So we wanted to make sure to include that, and we will also potentially reference some of those plot points in our conversation as well. So take care of yourselves. But if you want to continue watching, you are now informed and aware. All right, Sarah, do you want to kick us off with an IMDb summary for The Sopranos, Episode 9?
Yes, actually, I'm going to use the HBO summary, honestly, because the IMDb one sucks. So the summary is, Uncle Junior enjoys a romantic tryst in Boca with his girlfriend Bobby, not realizing that she's been gabbing to her friends.
Oh, yes. Bobby. Oh, Bobby. She had it coming for her. We knew from the beginning of the episode it was not going to be a love story where they sail off into the sunset.
Definitely not.
Right.
Ugh,
what is your episode title for this 9th episode?
Yeah, my title is Pie.
Oh, yes. I felt that one. Well done. My episode title is The Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Kind of important in this episode.
Yes, indeed. All right, well, let's dive in. Tell me your thoughts about this 9th episode for The Sopranos.
Yeah. I think this episode is just another really great example of the way that this show is able to manage so many things all at one time and, bring us back into, a lot of focus on this family specifically and what they're going through while still pushing the plot forward with all of these other things. And so we see, this balance between these almost like two sides of Tony. And I'm really appreciating how it's almost like every other episode is either family focused or, mob business focused. And yet, even within that, everything is continuing to progress forward. And I think we talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but in this episode, we get to see, Charmaine and Artie again, and we haven't seen them for a few episodes. So it's cool to see how throughout this season as a whole, the show is continually circling back to characters and things that it's referenced before, but then we get to revisit it again in a new context or in a new light or a new situation. And I'm just really appreciating that intentionality in the way that this show is structured. There's a lot of juicy things that happen in this episode, but I am appreciating that balance that The Sopranos has been able to strike thus far.
Yeah. Artie is an interesting one. I'm glad you brought him up because it feels like things are not going to end well for Artie. Feels a little inevitable, but I could be wrong. But he's a fascinating character that is navigating this world and this complicated rules of this world and stepping on a couple of toes. So yeah, the world continues to widen and expand in the world of The Sopranos, which I think I'm surprised by. Every time this happens, it kind of feels like we thought that we knew what the show is doing and the rules of the world and the people in the world. And then the show just expands it out a little bit further and covers some pretty big topics. I think my predominant feeling after watching this episode is just how bold and willing The Sopranos is to go there and weave in these plot lines that cover some really important and really horrific things that do happen. And it's unafraid to integrate them into the story and have everybody and all the characters in this world react to those things. So I think I'm shocked by that at a meta level. There's more than enough here to entertain an audience with a mob story. And yet the show is wanting to showcase things like sexual abuse and bringing that into a story like this, which I think I was surprised by, and having us wrestle with the complicated ways that we also feel these instincts of justice and wanting justice to be served, and having our main characters wrestle with those same complicated tensions and complicated emotions that we do when we experience this in the real world and have to face these really horrifying things. And we get to see Tony and the other capos also wrestle with how do you stomach something like this. And so I'm just impressed by that most from this episode is, wow, The Sopranos is bold and unafraid and willing to go there. And I really appreciate that about the show.
Yeah. I was thinking kind of similarly that this show. Okay, so this came out in 1999, and I was in high school a little bit after this came out, but in high school I had friends who would had
Yeah.
suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, like all of those things which are
Yeah.
touched on in this episode. And so
Yeah.
I felt while watching, similarly to like the AJ episode a couple episodes ago,
Yeah.
like I was transported back there in these
Mm.
very real things that I was dealing with when I was a teenager, when I was Meadows' age.
Yeah.
And I mean, this came out in 1999, and they're giving
Yeah.
voice to these things and showing these things. Even when Ali is cutting, it's not overly dramatized. It doesn't feel like
Yeah.
the teenage drama things that we were all subjected to when we were younger. Like it's not
Overly.
overdone,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you feel the seriousness and the weight of it, and you feel her grief and like, okay, what drove her to make
Yeah.
this choice, and seeing these various characters like react to that. And
Yeah.
this is a show about the mob.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to your point, like I appreciate that this show is willing to give voice to these things that people do experience. Like these are real things
Yep.
that people go through, real things that kids go through.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing it not from the kids' perspective, but from the adults' perspective, and how they're like,
Yeah.
okay, what do I do now? How do I respond to this? And I love that there's plenty of mob stuff that's also going on, but that this show
Mm-hmm.
is being so intentional and um so careful in how it's portraying these various things, whether
Yes.
it's Tony going to therapy, AJ with his ADHD diagnosis, Meadow dealing
Yeah.
with her friend who is going through all of this stuff. Like there's so much care in the writing, I think, in the way that it's handling
Mm-hmm.
these very difficult topics that people are dealing with, and
Yeah.
layering on all of the cool mob stuff at the same time. So I'm just
Yeah.
the more episodes we watch, the more impressed I am with The Sopranos and its ability to do all of these things well and it not feel out of place. This whole
Mm.
plot line with Meadow and her friend and the coach, that doesn't feel out of left field. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it's out of nowhere, or like the show is trying to like preach about something, but it
Mm-hmm.
feels natural and normal, and okay, this is what's happening in this family. Let's see how they're going to respond. And just shout out to the writers, because
Yeah.
this is incredible. I now get the hype about The Sopranos, and we're only 9 episodes in.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much depth, so much more depth in this show than I was even prepared for. I thought that we would get some really great writing, really great character complexity, but the show has so much to say about the world and the society that we live in, the families that make up the world, the communities, even like the concept of this being like the soccer team, and you see the neighborhood community coming together and all of the different complicated dynamics that come from being in community with people and different personalities and the parent personalities with the kids, like all of it's colliding together. And so the show's multifaceted nature feels like it really does reflect the multifaceted nature of our lives, where we have our individual family units, our marriages, our friendships, our careers that then collide with our larger neighborhood communities, that then collide with these societal pressures around like the law enforcement and the press. We get to see how they handle this really bad situation in this community, and all of it is colliding together, and everybody has feelings and emotions and reactions to all of it. And I love that, like you mentioned, we kind of go on like the side arc over the course of this episode, but it is related to this backdrop of this being a story about this mob community, because that instinct that we all have when we have a feeling of righteous anger towards something, where you want to take the perpetrator out, Tony has to wrestle with the fact that he can actually have the power to go and take that guy out. And it is like just another day for him to be able to casually do that in a way that is maybe not as closely a leap and a jump away for like the average person. Somebody like an Artie who wants to take someone out a little less within range, but for Tony, like easily plan a hit, take the guy out, and satisfy that feeling of righteous anger. And so that intersection with this being at the backdrop in the world of the mob, I think is also really fascinating. And he has to kind of within himself battle the tensions of whether that is okay to do or not. And him having the power and ability to take the guy out and stop other future children from being hurt. But then is it really just though? Does he deserve that? Or should this be handled by the law enforcement forces? And how much trust does he have in them or not? All of those complicated questions you see him wrestling with too, which I think is fascinating because of the power that he has being a capo and kind of a leader in this mob family, while still experiencing a lot of the same tragic experiences that an average layperson in our world experiences. But the ability to act on those things maybe a little less close for us the way that it is for Tony Soprano.
Yeah, continuing to build that empathy that we have with Tony of, man, he's just a regular guy, but also
Yeah.
he's really not. And I appreciate in this episode, we see how Tony is using his influence and the resources available to him at first to try
Yeah.
and sway the coach to stay. So we get,
Yeah.
Polly and them bringing the big TV, then Christopher threatening the coach's dog. That was very stressful for me and not enjoyable. I was very nervous for that dog. And so I appreciate that we see that in the beginning. And
That's good.
then
Yeah.
Tony learns what happens. So we know that Tony is powerful and he can take people out. We have seen it with our own eyes in a previous episode. But I like that we get those two little instances of Tony trying to get the coach to stay. And we can see how Tony can like pull these levers of power and use his crew to try and get what he wants. And then it's like, oh no. Okay, now Tony is wondering if we're going to take this guy out. We've already seen what his crew can do when it's trying to convince somebody to stay. What will his crew do once Tony gives the order to take him out? And I love that those two little instances early on create so much tension as Tony is wrestling with this, because we know the power that he has, and it makes that like moral kind of quandary that he's in feel tangible and real and not abstract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He has his power of persuasion and the other kind of power, that he has as well. Uh, and I think it's neat too, because in the end of the episode, you see him make the call. I forget, it's to one of his henchmen. But you see him make the call, and you know that like minutes later, without that call intervening, that guy is taken out, and so that feeling of very real stakes and very real power, we also get to experience as a viewer too, of really truly that it is no longer hypothetical. We get to feel and experience, oh, Tony really can just push a button and take some people out. And I think that's a fascinating part of knowing that versus seeing and feeling the imminence of that death, of that murder.
Yeah, yeah, and we see and feel that all throughout this episode. Like
Yeah,
it is very very prominent. And
yeah,
I also appreciate that, we have this really heavy, weighty, um, storyline that's going on with Tony and the coach and everybody. And then we have this very silly plot line with Junior happening at the same time. And so I think, again, from a writing perspective, so brilliant because
we
we
need
need a
some.
break every
We need
once
a
in a
break.
while. We
We do.
need to come out of this really heavy, really real experience
Dark.
that some people
Yeah,
unfortunately go through. Yes, it's so dark. And
yeah,
then we have Junior, who is, man, we've talked about it so much, but is like completely out of his depth. And again, funny for this show, playing with, obviously, we're following Tony. He is our protagonist. We're rooting for him to run the whole thing eventually because, I mean,
yeah,
let's be honest, he's already doing it. And we know that Junior is out of his depth. And I think even the plot lines that these two characters are following in this episode bear that out as well. Tony is dealing with something that is like weighty and important and serious
yeah,
and, the concern of the whole community. And then Junior is just over here with his girlfriend. And
yeah,
that's it. So I think smart from a writing perspective to give us balance, but also smart from a writing perspective to show us yet again how unserious Junior is and how
yeah.
truly little power he has. Where we're seeing Tony, where he can, like you said, push a button and a dude is dead. I love that contrast in this episode.
Mm-hmm. And I think it helps us buy into Tony because Junior's primary emotion in this episode is obviously anger and frustration, but it's for his own reputation and protecting his own pride and his own, uh, delicate ego. Whereas we see that Tony also is experiencing anger, but it's because he cares about something greater and bigger outside of himself. And so even the direction of where their anger is towards and where and why is so different. Like Junior's is so self-focused. He feels the need to protect himself. And Tony we see has this protective instinct that is leading him to do a lot of potentially dangerous bad things. But it comes from a place of care and protectiveness for his flock, for the children, for the people in his community and the ones to come. And I think that helps us just buy into Tony as a character too, because it's like, yeah, it comes from this place that cares deeply for others, not just about protecting his own status and reputation. And I think that's a fascinating like distinction and difference between him and Junior as well, where Junior's like so consumed by his own world and his own reputation and having to keep that intact.
It's, oh my gosh, Junior is so unserious. It's really
It's so
just
rough to
quite
watch.
comical in this.
Yeah.
Oh man, when Tony is dealing with these really, really real issues that are the concern of the entire community. So, you know, uh,
Yeah.
building on what we've seen before of people have a problem and they come to Tony. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is a little bit different because their kids are in school and on the soccer
Yeah.
team and stuff, so they have that in common too. But that that looking to Tony as a leader and having that trust in Tony, even someone like Artie, who we're real nervous about, but he has enough trust in Tony to be able to come and say, "Hey, don't kill the dude."
Yeah.
And I mean, that probably putting Artie in danger. But the
Yep.
fact that there is, at least enough of an openness between them that Artie felt like he could come and take that risk to have that conversation. I think once again points to Tony's character and Tony's style of leadership, which, as we've seen, is markedly different than Junior's.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also encouraging to see Tony also take in both Artie and Dr. Melfi's nudgings, I would say. Artie's maybe a little less nudging, a little bit more like pleading very clearly. But Homeboy's open to feedback, and is willing to change his stance based on the things he's heard. He's digested it. He thinks it makes sense and is willing to change course. So he's not tunnel visioning down one path and unable to hear anybody else. It's nice to see this man who could easily just be lost in his own world and make his own decisions really like take in feedback, listen, reflect, and choose a different path and actually change course based on what's been said. And he really dwells on it and takes it in, which I think is like an interesting dimension of Tony's character as well. Especially him being in such a position of power.
Hey man, we're getting good like mental health moments in The Sopranos, and we're getting some good leadership lessons in The Sopranos.
There you go.
Two things that I didn't think we were gonna get.
Nope. For this very flawed character.
Right.
One of the other things that I thought was a really interesting comment that Artie specifically makes when he's talking to Charmaine about the whole situation is he makes this comparison between Tony and the coach. And he says this comment of like, I mean, really, like Tony as a person is not as bad. You can't say that he's as bad as the coaches. They are different, right? Because the wife is obviously very understandably concerned, like, yo, Tony's about to like go murder someone, not very good. But that contrast between both of them being by the court of law and the legal system and by for all intents and purposes on paper, both doing some real bad things. And yet the root source and the reasoning why and like the nature of what they're doing is different. And Artie's kind of positioning them as two different dimensions and in two different categories, I think is fascinating. We've always been interested and talk a lot about how so many pieces of IP around the mafia being able to position these characters as on paper very morally wrong, and yet we feel there's something that's morally redeemable or empathetic about them. And I think that's an interesting example to see this man who is a sexual predator rightfully being put in a different category as Tony Soprano is, and Artie articulating those differences to his wife that probably doesn't see them as too different because on paper they're both doing some real bad things and hurting a lot of people. And yet Artie's like, but they're different, aren't they? They're different, right? And so I think that's just fascinating to weave in that moral ambiguity with Tony and the world that he inhabits and everything that world represents too, and comparing it against something that is truly quite depraved and really horrific. And the show's kind of inviting us to like wrestle with the distinctions and nuances between those two things, even though logically we're like, it's not really the same, but feeling wise, we're like, I can see how it's kind of different. It's weird. It's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And, in that moment, Artie is all of us watching The Sopranos,
Yes.
Yes. But that is the fun of this genre, though, is how movies like this really make you kind of examine your own sense of morality and what is right. And I think that's why, mob movies are really interesting, is because there is a code that they follow. And so like, yes, they are committing crimes and doing all of these things, but it's within these boundaries and they hold themselves to a standard. And I think that is such an interesting aspect of this genre of TV movies. That is so different than so many of the other like kind of action-y movies where they're just taking people out for no reason. So I think that adds an interesting complexity, and part of the reason why I think we enjoy stories like this that are so different and make us go, Okay, I'm gonna have to investigate some things within me
Hmm.
after watching this. Like, why am I
Hmm.
rooting for Tony Soprano to take out this dude? Maybe I need to have a little moment with myself and rethink some things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it begs the question of what is and isn't just, and who gets to say that and determine that. This whole episode feels it felt to me like such a callback to the opening scene of The Godfather, where the one of the characters comes in and is asking for justice to be done for his daughter who was raped and abused, and her face is deconstructed, and there's this like this physical act of incredible violence against his daughter, and so he's asking Don Corleone to kill the perpetrators, and Don Corleone says, but is that really just? Your daughter is alive and walking the earth, so how for us to take that person's life, is that really just or not? And then the character like corrects himself, well, make them suffer like they made my daughter suffer, right? But it invites this question of, when the mafia inevitably is the holders of justice and carrying out what they deem as just, how do they determine what that looks like, and I think you see that happen in a lot of the discussions with the capos too, of them saying like, well, we got to take them out, but is that really right or not? But then also, what if we do allow the feds to handle it, but the guy's going to get out in 2 years, and he's going to do it again with the next set of girls. He's going to coach another soccer team. And what's our role in intervening and protecting against that potential future? And all the complicated scenarios. And it's fascinating to see them amongst themselves discuss what is right, what is wrong, and also how much trust do we have in the system versus taking things into our own hands, which is a whole nother interesting conversation around morality too, of like, in their twisted form of logic, is it more just for them and more justified if they truly do not have trust in the legal system to take care of as well? And so if they can do it, they're looking at each other and being like, well, why don't we? I think that's fascinating, for the sake of the future girls, for the sake of the future victims. It's all real vague and hazy, and they can lead themselves together to these conclusions too, which is fascinating to see them echo chamber sometimes a little bit together as well.
Yeah, yeah. And like, speaking of their like mistrust in law enforcement, we do
Yeah.
get a couple of moments where we see, the feds kind of pop back up again in this episode. We see that somebody followed Junior all the way to Boca and was,
Yeah.
reporting back, doing surveillance on him. And then there's also that conversation with Junior and Mikey, and them saying like, hey, we got a leak, but it's in Tony's boat. And so I appreciate that, we get their mistrust of law enforcement in this coach situation, but we also learn more about where the FBI is in relation to this family as well. And so again, the show's ability to have multiple things happening at once, and even if something like the FBI is not the primary plot line in this episode, it's still present and we still get a little
Mm.
touch of that, so we remember, hey, they're not safe. Even when Junior goes all the way to Boca, he's still not safe. And we can see the reach of the FBI, and how they are embedded, in this organization, or at least close to this organization, to know their kind of comings and goings. So I like that threat is still looming, even when it's not, the most prominent thing or the focus of the episode.
Yeah, yeah. That constantly looming and encircling sharks around the vulnerable fish, that especially because after the last episode there was so much like tension and anxiety around it. And while it's not fully come to a head yet, it's still there, like the evidence is still there. They just need a better case. They need more evidence, and who will be responsible for giving them what they need to take them all down eventually, and reset the game board, perhaps. Like, will that be Junior's ultimate, like the resolution of this Junior and Tony tension is that Junior's taken in, and there's someone that needs to fill the seat, and there isn't this showdown between the two of them. Where's Livia? Also, what is she scheming? We get a little bit of her in this episode, but not much. So yeah, lots of plot to unfold. And I'm like looking at where we are in the season, and we've only got like 4 more episodes yet. And so where will this season choose to bring these arcs to? Because right now it feels like we're right in the thick of it. Like, this could go in a million directions. There's so many plots. There's so many ways this could end. And I kind of love the thrill of that too, is I cannot chart how this season is going to end, because there is no clear, we've been building and it's going to land somewhere here. We just reviewed Alien Earth, and there's a very clear, like, there's going to be a showdown and an uprising, and these forces, something's got to happen and things are going to happen ahead. This one kind of feels like we're just living life and daily dealing with new things. And there's all these tensions that will eventually have to get resolved some way. But there isn't a central, like, key tension point that has like one direction or another for how it's going to land. I think that's really fun as a viewer to not know where this is going at all.
Yeah, because this is so character driven and so family driven. Obviously there are events that are happening and they are important and are impactful on the plot, but really, like we've talked about, it's just spending time with these characters and with this family. And I think that opens up so many fun possibilities for us, because we're just hanging out with these characters. And I feel like we've said this in maybe not all of our looking aheads, but probably most of them, where we're just excited to spend more time with these characters. Like, we don't really care what they're doing necessarily. Yeah. We just want to spend more time with them. And I think that is a brilliant part of this show too, is obviously it's a story about the mob. There's a lot of that here, but the mob is just a vehicle for us to be able to explore this family. And I think that opens up so many different lines of exploration and different types of stories that we can go on with these characters. And that's what we've been doing for this whole season. And we're here for it. So we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know where this season is going to end, but it's really exciting to just kind of be on this ride.
Yep. Exactly. No idea when or how things are going to come to a head, but lots brimming and vibrating. And that's fun for us. It's just to be within all of these complicated dynamics, learn new ones, new tensions or new alliances that are kind of unexpected too. New seeds that are planted. I think one thing that was notable to me at the end of this episode that I think is an interesting seed planting moment is Meadow watching her father stumble home drunk, which she already knows that he's pretty much is confident that he's part of the mafia, and him saying, I didn't hurt anybody. And her also potentially feeling responsible for being the one to have voiced what happened with Coach, and how that's so much for a young person to feel like their words that they say to their family members might be responsible for taking out a life, maybe, and the fear that can come with that, the mistrust or the distance that can form with her and her father in that, and realizing that he's capable of so much is quite terrifying. And how will she react and process that information? So we saw AJ start to realize this and start to feel that so many complicated emotions. And I think the look on Meadow's face at the end was also like, oh, whoa, like, I got to be careful what I say. Like my dad also is capable of that, that does a lot for a young brain.
Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking about in that scene is the flashback to when Tony was a kid, and he was always watching and paying attention to his parents and listening in onto their conversation for what's going on. And we see Meadow doing the same thing. She's always listening. She's always watching. She's always paying attention. And no wonder, I mean, obviously she's older than AJ, so she's paying more attention, but if she has that thing in her where she just needs to observe, she needs to know what's going on. No wonder she was able to put it together that her dad is in the mob, because she's
Mhm.
so aware and she's always paying attention. So I'm curious to see, is Meadow kind of similar to Tony in a lot of ways? Like, we've seen that Tony and his mom are pretty similar in a lot of ways. So does Meadow also have some of those things? Like, we know that Meadow is daddy's girl, but
Yeah.
do they share some of those traits? Do they process, the world in a similar way? I
Yeah.
think that's going to be interesting to see. They have a very special bond. We saw that in the college episode, but what is that going to deepen as we go? And just again,
Mhm.
this like intergenerational thing that The Sopranos is doing, I think is very interesting. Potentially
Yeah.
grandmother, father, and daughter, all
Mm.
kind of sharing some of these similarities, and processing through the world similarly might be an interesting thing to explore that you don't always see, three generations, and like male and female too, I think. So if that is where the show is going, that could make for some really interesting dynamics to explore that we don't always see in TV shows or movies.
Yeah. Yeah. And helping us understand Tony, understand Livia more as like we're understanding it's so efficient because we're understanding more about that character, so how Meadow is wired, but that is also pointing to potentially the things that Tony's experienced as well at the same time, and understanding Tony. It's genius interweaving of these plot lines and these like personalities and bloodlines that are really interconnected. Yeah, so good. Any other last big things we wanted to mention before we give out some TVNS awards?
I just thought it was really interesting that we start the episode with Livia, visiting her husband's grave, and just her being so upset at everything.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was just an interesting way to begin this episode. We don't, Livia is not a main focus of this episode at all.
Yeah.
And so the fact that that is how we see her in the episode, I just thought was interesting. We'll see what the show continues to do with her, but I feel like every time we see her, we learn something new. And I don't know, this character just becomes more and more interesting the more we get into this show.
Yeah, there's definitely more to her plot line as well, but that feeling of anger that she's experienced is clearly mixed in with a lot of like just grief and loss and stuff like that that is also being expressed out as well from her in that moment too. So seeing her natural reactions to coping with loss and coping with grief being anger, that looks a little familiar. We know where that has looked like, that has looked like with Tony as well. So I think that's neat to see those parallels happen too. All right, let's give out some TVNS awards. The first category is most family oriented. What is your choice for this one?
Yeah, I want to give this to all the mafia dads who are ready to murder the coach.
Yes. Mine is similar. It's for all of the mafia dads, but it's for them cheering so passionately at the soccer
Oh,
practice.
it was so cute. I
I
love it.
know.
I love it when Silvio like storms onto the field and is yelling at the ref, almost gets the game canceled because because he
Yeah.
was yelling at the ref. Oh, it's so good.
So good. Dads at their children's sporting events are all the same. All the same. Whether you're a capo in the DeMeo family or not, you the same. It's so endearing. Next category is most explosive moment. What is your choice for this one?
Yeah, I am going to give this to actually the end of the episode where Tony comes home just
Mm,
hammered after murdering the coach, or not
yeah.
murdering the coach. I was I was
I was
real
scared.
stressed in
I was
that
scared too.
that moment. So, yeah.
When he like grabs Carmela to start dancing, I don't know, I felt as a woman perhaps just
Yeah.
fear and anxiety,
Yes.
because you just never know when something's going to set him off, and that same aggressiveness is going to change. And so I was kind of relieved by the end of the episode. I'm like, okay, the ending credits, good. We made it out alive, and no domestic violence yet in this episode. Okay, thank God, thank God.
Yeah, yep,
Whew.
me too. I had the exact same thought.
Yeah, that same brimming feeling.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this award to the Meadow revealing what has been happening with Coach moment. That just, like, we knew a lot was happening already up until that moment with Allie, and then realizing the depths of what has happened and where it's come from, that was wild. And it was also a moment where I'm like, oh, this show is bold and fearless, and it is choosing to say a lot of things about some important topics. So props to the show. But yeah, that definitely expanded the depth of this episode and what the show is looking to do, which I really appreciated, as we mentioned. Okay, double meaning dialogue. What is your choice for this one?
Okay, I'm going to give this to Tony when he, I think, is attempting to apologize to Dr. Melfi when he says, I might have been overstating the case a little bit.
Yeah.
Really, buddy? Might have? Okay.
Yikes. And my choice for double meaning dialogue is Junior's talking to Mikey about Tony. He's very salty. He says, I taught him how to play baseball. Oh, got some feelings.
He does have some feelings. Oh, Junior.
Got some feelings. Oh, Junior. Okay, well, looking ahead, what are you excited to see?
I mean, it's just what we were talking about. Like, I'm excited to hang out with this family some more. As a person who does enjoy police procedurals, I'm very curious about the FBI and their case and when they are going to make their move and who they're going to round up. So I'm very curious about the FBI case that is brimming. And then, of course, as always, I just want to know everything about Livia and who she is as a person and what she is plotting. We didn't get to see her a lot in this episode, so I would like to see more of her in the next episode or two, because she is just fascinating. Oh, also, the other thing that I'm excited to see more of is the crew having their meetings at the nursing home, the retirement home. I'm very excited about that, and everybody moving their moms into the same retirement community. So I'm just happy to be hanging out there with all the old folks while there is some mob business going on. I think that's going to be absolutely hilarious.
It's going to make for some really great comedic moments. I hope they lean into that. Please do. The Sopranos. Yeah. Like we said, just happy to be here, happy to be in this world. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Artie. He's more on my radar now. I think there's been so many key moments with him over the course of this season, and he embodies this really fascinating combination of traits where he clearly understands how this world works to a certain extent, and yet has seemingly like a naive audacity to do what he wants, but also has such a goodness in him that you don't feel with most of the characters on the show. Like, just genuinely trying to do the right thing from every moment to moment, but a little naive in a lot of that. And so that's a perfect character to take out, in some really tragic way. So I just, there's something there. He often is coming up in some of these key moments. So I wonder what the show is looking to do with Artie's character. So we'll see. We shall see. And then, what's happening with Livia? Not a clue. And then how will Junior get like toppled off of the throne? I'm very curious to see. They could do a big showdown, or they can do kind of a fake out and just have him like be taken in. And then once again, it's now a land grab for that title, or everyone just ushers Tony onto the throne and he reluctantly has to sit on it. Like, I could see them taking that route too. There's not a lot of runway, so we'll see. And then, in general, I'm just curious, where will this arc go for season 1? I always find it fun seeing where they choose to end a season in a satisfying way, and what threads are still left open, what threads are actually tied up. And so, now that we're nearing the end, I'm like, oh, where are we going? We only got 4 episodes left, so that'll be fascinating to see. All right. Well, this was our review and discussion of episode 9 of The Sopranos season 1. You can find it available on HBO Max. Thank you for listening to today's episode of TV and Us. Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories, so everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today as we continue our journey through The Sopranos Season 1. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, and let us know what you are excited to see next as we head towards the last section of this season. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at tvnspod, or email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andesmedia.co, for the latest on TV and Us and our other podcast, Movies and Us. We'll be back soon to discuss episode 10. So we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again with y'all very soon.